It should be
In the
the other
middle,
panel because we had a chance to question it earlier. So we defer to the other panel.
Doesn't mean we don't have questions, but we ask them after that.
Okay, we'll ask them after.
Go ahead. Well, really, really good stuff.
Thank you.
I am very impressed with the way you told a cohesive story. Your focus was clear from the beginning and you followed that focus through. So very impressive. I agree with what the story, the narrative that you picked, but I want to ask a sort of a bigger question. When you were, as a team, given a mandate saying they want to grow their sales in Canada, what were the reasons, or what made you as a team sort of put it aside and say, tell the story that you are?
So as a team, we initially didn't put it aside.
Mhm.
That's the mandate that we tried to follow. Then our research and our research findings, we couldn't justify following that mandate. It just didn't make sense. We saw that the industry was in decline, their products were scattered, and they weren't ready to go B2B. All of our analysis told us it was not the right direction to go in. So then we thought about what are they actually really trying to ask us? They want us to increase sales. And our message should be about increasing sales, whether it's B2C or B2B, but that is the ultimate goal of the company. So in the short term, focus on the B2C sales so you can build that brand, align with customers who share your values. Then you can penetrate the B2B market in 2 years' time when you have that clear brand story to tell. And the way you penetrate that B2B market is by engaging with employee resource groups at large corporations. So don't try to go with the buyers at those companies. As an example, at Pepsi, they have an organization called Women's Inclusion Network. Find people that are part of that network. They can relate to the values that you share. And tie in those values to get those things, right? So focus on that approach. So in our analysis, we just determined that based on our analysis, the best approach for you right now is to build that consumer brand before you go business to business.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations. Thank you for the presentation. That was really, really great. I like the fact that you recommend not to go B2B right away. I believe that takes courage, to face an owner and tell him, listen, you want to do that right, but that's not the right way to go. That takes guts. And the streamlining recommendation, that also takes courage. You're doing too much, just focus on that. That's been done in the past in other industries, other companies, and it's been successful. It's usually the right way to go. I'm a little bit concerned about the operations part of the business. Right? There's a huge, and we had in our group, we had a concern about that issue not being addressed. You're trying to sell more, right? Do you have the capacity to produce it, and do you have a plan to ramp up production? Have you thought about that angle of the challenge?
For the B2B, we do not, and that is the reason we are not going in that direction. But we got a proper breakdown of our operation costs and our revenue. And for that, we thought of reallocating some of the amounts to different, for example, there was something going in India's fund or something like that, and we thought of reallocating that to market, for marketing and for generating more interaction via social media engagement. So we thought of those reallocations in there, but the budget is there, it needs a little bit of reallocation.
Yeah, and I think if I can add to that, expand as well, just on the operations side, as far as augmenting their capacity, we have to, of course, like in many businesses, operate with some assumptions. And given that they want to include their sales, increase their sales, and assuming their margins, given that we couldn't have a personal conversation with Nazreen, we assumed that there was going to be some intention behind having, if her entire goal is educating women, empowering women, empowering these communities, and providing opportunities where they can spend, currently it's 4 years, where they can train and then ultimately go out perhaps and start their own businesses. So as more sales are demanding more to be made, there's more opportunity for them to come in, get paid for work that they're learning at the same time. And obviously, whether they have the capacity to support scaling operation or not is yet to be determined. We don't have enough information to know that for sure, but we're assuming that if she wants to grow a business, that she's going to find some people that are enthusiastic to work with her.
Have you considered the sorry?
Oh, sorry, I thought we were going.
Have you looked at the logistics costs? Now, what is that last kilometer to get it to the person's door? Are you going to ship directly from India or Nepal, which means a lot of local logistics and shipping individual packages? Or would you find a way of warehousing in Canada and shipping from here? And there are different costs associated with that.
Currently we've got 2 warehouses, one in the UK and one in the US already. So those are our central, where most of our inventory is kept already. So with the Canadian market, initially, we can't justify having a Canadian warehouse right away. We've got to increase our sales first, shipping from the US. Once the operations are at a level where we can support and justify having a Canadian warehouse, that's when that expansion should happen. But right now, the 2 warehouses in the UK and the US make sense for the operation with where we're at today.
Yeah.
Okay, so great presentation. Very, very well done, very clear, and I love the strategy that you've taken. I think what we were hoping to see in our discussion is addressing the confusion and around this organization, not just their website, but the way, you know, the messaging is happening, and you've really kind of brought it down and focused. And, you know, I love the idea of bring down the SKUs to 1 SKU, because that's where you can really target a niche like you've done, a particular market. I see the operations issue being addressed quite well with that idea too, because it's less training, it's faster, you don't have to, you know, create a whole bunch of different types of products. You can focus on just the mats. I thought that was great. I wanted to ask you just kind of a little bit more on the creative marketing side. What ideas you might have for a little bit of out-of-the-box thinking? Of course, you're going to have Instagram. Of course, you're going to do the social media thing and all those platforms. Maybe some influencers, but you know, this is a very unique company. She's got a very unique, powerful story. Have you thought of anything else that you could do to promote her work besides the usual methods? Any other channels? PR, events, something?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that we thought of that tied back into yoga, again, was given how accustomed everybody is now to Zoom meetings, and given that they need at this level to really minimize their costs, that even though we said in the sort of year 1 to year 3 range is when you want to start doing some of those more strategic partnerships, we still think that Nazreen could be getting on the phone, getting on email, and really there's hundreds of yoga studios in Canada, let alone North America, and could be actually having conversations with those studios and maybe trying to engage with some online events and online presentations where she actually goes to these studios and maybe tells her story. Yoga studios love to throw events, whether it's, you know, ecstatic dances or you know, music nights where they're talking about issues and sharing things that are community driven. So we thought that would be a low-cost way for her to be able to just, you know, talk to these studios, and that was the one sort of thing that we
Maybe
thought about.
associations,
Mhm,
but maybe
yeah.
at a higher level. And just one more thing, would have liked to see a bit more on the financials.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good feedback.
Yeah, that would be my question for you, which I didn't ask you the first time around.
Yeah, it's your
So,
turn.
no money, no mission, right?
Yeah,
How much money are you gonna bring in year 1, year 2, year 3?
yeah. Yeah, that's, well,
That was a question.
it's not rhetorical. I mean,
So currently,
Yeah.
we're bringing in about $50,000 in sales from all the products right now. With increasing the price, we think that we will be able to grow that. We don't have an exact number yet, especially for within the first year, right? Because the first year we have to be laser focused on the brand and the story. So getting that story, so in the first year, we're not expecting a massive spike. It's the first year is about engaging and taking your customers on that journey with you. After that, in the second year, when we start engaging influencers, we were thinking each influencer that we engage would translate to about roughly an increase in about $2,000 in sales. So based on that, in the first year where you're engaging influencers, again, with a targeted approach, we were thinking it was going to be about 200 influencers. So sales are increasing by about, I think,
$400,000.
Yeah.
If the question is from good, finish a really good presentation, which just give you good the feedback on the first part, and we're really happy to see that you implemented some of the feedback that they give you on what you did, and that was very good. That was very good. So I have a couple of questions I'm asking for you, very quickly. First one, talk about B2B, and second, B2B is not hard to go there, but can you look at the B2B in a different way, not as a sales channel? Because at the end of the day, you have to take it to the end customer, which is here, the yoga studios. Can you look at some B2B partnerships other than B2B sales channels? Don't sell to B2Bs, but use them for distribution.
Right. In terms of amplifying that conversation
Exactly.
and that dialogue. I think that's a fair point, absolutely. I think going back to the doing too many things at once, at a certain point, I always, maybe this is a little too much, but if you try to light a pile of leaves on fire by moving your magnifying glass from leaf to leaf to leaf with the sunlight, it's never going to go. If you focus on one, the whole pile will eventually kind of go into flames. So I think if they have capacity to do that, and it's not in a way that's requiring more products to be made when they haven't actually figured out what it looks like to scale yet, I absolutely think that is an important and a great idea. If they don't have the HR, the personnel to implement that, in addition to what they're doing, then maybe they've got to wait till year one. But as far, Nazreen's obviously, she's probably pretty busy, but I don't see anything wrong with reaching out to people and just sort of seeing what kind of conversation there is to get that started.
And if I may have a small follow-up on that one. I really like the idea what they need to have a cohesive, the consistent story, and the story is there, but the story doesn't sell itself. So the story is there, how you can make sure that the story is being converted to sale. Like people hear about it, that's good, but how can you make sure people pay for that story?
Yeah.
That's also exactly why in Empire we said there needs to be a clear call to action. So what we were talking about is on their social media, while they're creating that story, also linking to a clear call to action. So creating some of their posts along the lines, share their story, and link it directly to their yoga mats and empowerment, and put that empowerment motion with the empowerment and make a clear connection.
The conversation around those two is there.
Yeah, you have a question in the back?
I'll go ahead. My question kind of follows up on the sales, like how do you know your sales are increasing based on your strategy? I'm a firm believer of what gets measured gets managed. So what metrics are your KPIs to make sure that not only your sales are a representation of your strategy, but also the impact on Nazreen's original mission and values?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first key metric for me is if we increase the price to $149, even a 30% decrease in initial sales numbers annually is still going to equate to 30% increase in revenue. And so there's a little bit of play there for, you don't have to get as many sales to get the same revenue. In addition, obviously looking at gross margin is now going to be increased, and seeing how that tallies up over the course of the year is going to be huge. Customer engagement, and for me, email and SMS is going to be massive, because SMS, you have a 95% open rate. Email, you've got a 30% open rate. SMS and email are extremely cheap and cost effective. So growing that list and really paying attention to what kind of revenue per email, per campaign you're sending out, per delivery is going to really help drive that first year.
Yeah, and just to add to that a little bit, around the metrics that we'll be tracking. Social media marketing today, there's a ton of different metrics that you can look at, and how you can see how you're driving engagement with your followers. So it's really important that you track which of your media posts are gaining traction, and around that time, which of those are actually converting to sales. And learning from that, you need to be doing more of that. So social media metric tracking is going to be critical as part of the strategy.
Great. Well, I'll just, I would probably have 15 seconds, but what I meant is beyond sales metrics, I meant what about the metrics on the original key issue you identified, which was awareness?
So Nazreen actually does a really good job of that today. Around the 7 key issues that she's trying to raise awareness for, the website lists very clearly how they're tracking against each of those initiatives and how many people they're helping. It's important that that message continues to be shared. It's actually something that the Empowerment Collective is doing very well today.
I mean, I think looking at ratios.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, looking at the ratios with that, looking at how each initiative as a ratio works with that, you know, like how is each email campaign affecting that? How is each social media campaign, how each influencer is affecting that?
Thank you.